You have ideas, clear ones, interesting ones, sometimes even better than what's being said. But when the moment comes to speak, you hesitate. You tell yourself, I'll say it later. And somehow, you never do. So the question isn't, do you have ideas? It's, why do they stay inside you? 2. Problem deep dive. You're in a conversation, or a meeting, or even just texting someone. An idea forms in your mind. It feels solid. You almost say it. But then, a small pause. What if it sounds obvious? What if it's wrong? What if I can't explain it properly? So you wait. You refine it internally. You adjust the wording. You try to make it better before it leaves your mouth. But while you're doing that, the moment passes. Someone else speaks. The topic shifts. And your idea stays where it started. Inside. Later, it lingers. You replay it. I should have said that. You even imagine how it would have sounded. And sometimes, you realize it would have worked. This pattern repeats, not because you lack ideas, but because something in you doesn't let them leave. Over time, this does something subtle. You start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't speak much, or someone who thinks better than they express. But that's not the full story, because the real hesitation isn't about expression, it's about what happens after you express. And that's where things get deeper. 3. Reframe. You're not holding back because your ideas aren't good enough. You're holding back because sharing them changes something. It turns a private thought into something that exists outside of you. Inside your mind, ideas are flexible. You can reshape them, edit them, discard them without consequence. But once you say them out loud, they become real. They can be heard, interpreted, judged, and more importantly, they become attached to you. Your brain recognizes this shift, so it hesitates. Not because you're incapable, but because you're protecting something. Not just the idea, but your identity. And that raises a deeper question. Why does expressing an idea feel like committing to something bigger? 4. Psychological mechanism. Your brain treats expression as a form of identity signaling. When you say something out loud, you're not just sharing information, you're revealing how you think. This activates self-representation systems in the brain, the part that manages how you are perceived socially. Now add another layer, commitment pressure. Once you express an idea, your brain assumes a kind of ownership. This is now my idea. And with ownership comes risk. What if I'm wrong? What if I can't defend it? What if this defines how people see me? This links to something called evaluation apprehension, the anticipation of being judged. But here's where it becomes more subtle. Your brain isn't just afraid of being judged, it's also sensitive to identity permanence. Inside your mind, identity is fluid. You can hold conflicting thoughts. You can explore without being defined. But when you speak, your brain feels like you're locking in a version of yourself. And if you're not fully certain of that version, your brain delays the action. It keeps the idea internal, safe, uncommitted. Think of it like this. Your ideas are like sketches, loose, flexible, changeable. Speaking them turns them into ink. And your brain asks, are you ready to make this permanent? If the answer isn't clear, it hesitates. But this hesitation isn't permanent because the brain can learn something important, that expression doesn't mean commitment. 5. Practical framework. 1. Treat ideas as drafts, not declarations. What to do? Frame your thoughts as explorations, not final statements. Use language like, I'm thinking, maybe this could be. Why it works. This reduces commitment pressure and keeps your brain in a flexible mode. It signals that expression doesn't equal identity locking. Example, instead of saying, this is the answer, you say, I wonder if this might work. 2. Lower the meaning of being wrong. What to do? Remind yourself that incorrect ideas don't define you. They're part of the process. Why it works. This reduces evaluation apprehension and calms threat responses in the brain. It separates identity from performance. Example, you share an idea that isn't perfect, and instead of overthinking it, you let it exist and move on. 3. Speak before you refine. What to do? Share your idea at 70% clarity instead of waiting for 100%. Why it works? Perfection-seeking delays action and strengthens avoidance loops. Acting earlier weakens that pattern. Example, in a conversation, you say your idea while it's still forming, instead of waiting until it feels complete. 4. Notice the commitment moment. What to do? Become aware of the exact moment you feel resistance. Label it mentally. This is where I hesitate. Why it works? Awareness interrupts automatic avoidance and brings it into conscious control. Example, you feel the urge to stay quiet, and instead of obeying it instantly, you pause and observe it. 5. Build tolerance to being seen through your ideas. What to do? Intentionally share small thoughts regularly, not just important ones. Why it works? Repeated exposure reduces sensitivity to identity-based risk. Your brain learns that expression is safe. Example, you comment more in casual conversations, even when the stakes are low. Over time, the pressure decreases. 6. Integration. Here's the simplest way to understand all of this. You don't hold back because you lack ideas. You hold back because your brain treats ideas as extensions of you, and sharing them feels like defining yourself too quickly. But ideas aren't identity. They're movement. They change. They evolve. They don't need to stay fixed. The moment you stop treating every idea like a final version of yourself, expression becomes lighter, less risky, more natural. So the next time something forms in your mind and you feel that pause, notice it, not as a signal to stay quiet, but as a signal that something matters. And maybe let it leave your mind before it disappears, because your voice doesn't become clearer by waiting. It becomes clearer by being used.